that comedian. He used to say that like people like L.A. weather are like lizards. You know? He's not far from wrong.
All right. Just waiting everything going. All right, that should be going. We should be starting. And here we are. Huzzah. All right, we are live, gentlemen. Let's send out some tweets, letting know that we are live now. While I clicky clack on my keyboard, all awesome for a live stream.
Makes it sound official.
Yeah. I just got this mechanical keyboard a couple months ago, and my wife has been a saint about it because it is that unless you're down with the mechanical keyboard sound, it is not a favorable tune to hear during the day.
Man, I finished college in 1992 at University of Kentucky, and I still had a old school typewriter on my desk until the day I finished.
Nice.
I would drive my
Yeah,
neighbors
I'm,
nuts.
I'm old enough that that was how I typed on everything. Everything was a mechanical keyboard. It was all those buttons.
Yeah, I still
And
remember those days.
it felt really weird to go to a laptop where these buttons are so soft. And you have to really hit them. Trying to figure out if you actually made a mark on your page.
Yeah, totally. It's
Yeah, I'm a heavy typer.
yeah.
Yeah, I am too, and that was one reason this typewriter, this keyboard on the laptop gave up on me, and I had to finally buy a mechanical one from Amazon.
Yeah, I had computers ever since the I think late '80s in my house.
Yeah.
So we all had the chunkas happening and all that. And yeah, once the real soft keys came, it was it was fun. But then as you get older, you're just like, I just kind of miss just having that tactile ping of I'm doing stuff. I think the funniest thing my wife commented on when I got the keyboard was, she knows when I'm writing an angry email now.
Bang, 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 bang.
You can
bang,
hear it in the
bang.
back of the house. So yeah, it's fun. It's fun. All right, everything on the here seems to be going smoothly. Just making sure everything looks good on the YouTubes, and yeah. All right. Well, I think it's time to begin the show, gentlemen. So let's begin. Welcome to the Comics Coffee Metal live stream. I am joined today by Kurt Belcher and Robert C. Smith. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having us.
So, I've known Kurt for a while, through online, the Twitterverse. I even worked on, some of his artwork for our mutual buddy Philip Butehorn, and which was a blast. If you ever get a chance to ink Kurt's work, if you're a fellow artist, do it. It's so fun. But Robert, I'm not super familiar with you, but you guys are working together on something really, really cool. And you have a history of working together on some really cool stuff. But before we get into the comics you've made and the movies you've made and the movie you're making, I have to ask, gentlemen, Comics Coffee Metal, what are you digging right now? Start with Kurt.
Robert, you want to go first?
I don't know how old school it sounds, man, because I'm in my 50s. But for me, when I think about metal, I'm going like to like Soundgarden and stuff like that.
That's plenty metal.
Yeah, and so Soundgarden, Guns N' Roses, that beginning of that kind of grungy rock stuff. My own band from the 90s, Wild Love Rebellion, kind of psychedelic hard rock. I still listen to that. As a matter of fact, one of our songs, Hero F, is going to be in the credits. But for coffee, I'm not the hugest coffee drinker, but I'm very passionate about, I hate to admit it, but like Starbucks white mocha latte. That real foofy with like an extra shot or two.
No judgment here. I'm a chai latte guy. I go to Starbucks. That's what I get, no matter what. So they're good for what they are. For the real coffee, I go somewhere else. But for my special treat,
like a dessert.
Yeah, there you go.
Go about, Kurt.
Well, I was going to say you're going to hate me because I don't like metal, but then Bobby mentioned Guns N' Roses. So if that qualifies, then I've always
I
liked Guns N' Roses.
I think Guns N' Roses definitely falls in the metal vein. They came, they're of that era, of that community, from the late '80s.
They literally, they're literally like, and again, here I am speaking as a Gen X guy, like I'm an expert on all this shit or something, but they literally like sit on the fence of hair metal, because if you remember, like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
whole thing was like hair metal poison all those guys. And when the first video for the big one, Welcome to the Jungle, came out for Guns N' Roses, Axl
He
still had
had
the
that
big
huge, big
teased out
teased up
hair.
head of hair.
And
Yeah.
then that was it. That was the last time we saw him with that teased up hair. And after that, it was the straight down hair, and much more heading over to where Seattle would pick up later with the more grungy, look. But I always really credit grunge with really starting with Guns N' Roses kind of kicking hair metal out of the bed.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
No, totally, totally. Guns N' Roses, Soundgarden, all that ilk. It's all can be classified metal, especially Slash. Slash definitely brings the more metal to it and all that. And like you said, they are kind of birthed of the hair metal genre, and they definitely kind of bridge the gap, I think, between a lot of thrash and heavier stuff and hair stuff to the more hard rock sound that was developed, because hard rock as its own genre is still kind of newish,
Yeah.
I think Guns N' Roses grunge coming in and adding that, and then I think even Metallica doing Load and Reload, that really shaped the hard rock genre that just kind of took off and kind of dominated rock airspace for the next 15 years after that. So
who do we consider, like, right now? Because both of you guys are younger than me. Don, I don't know if you're the youngest one here or not, but what is metal today? What's a band that's out right now? Because I'm sure once I hear it, I'm gonna be like, okay, yeah, of course. But who are the metal bands that are in 2022? Is that like Avenged Sevenfold and shit, or is that still too old? Is that even too old?
Avenged, they're seen as elder statesmen at this point.
See, I am old. Black Sabbath, now, are they a band?
They I would say for sure. Here's the thing about metal, and I bring it up a lot on the show. It's very much a medium as opposed to a genre now.
Sure.
You can have so many things be quote unquote metal, but they can be vastly different. I listen to some metal where it's very electronic based and very almost kind of poppy and dancey, and then I can turn around and listen to something that is classified as melodic deathcore, and it's just super low tuned and super grungy. So picking like the metal band, like who's representing metal these days, and it's a difficult thing. I think first and foremost, and they've been around for a while, so I'm sure you've heard of them, but Trivium, I think, probably
I think that
they're probably the main guys. Just I think mainly because Matt Heafy, the singer and guitar player from Trivium, is very big online. He does a lot of Twitch streaming. He has that fan base connected with all that. I think he even I may be wrong, but I think he may have mentioned he made more money Twitch streaming than like playing concerts.
I utterly believe it. I completely and utterly believe it.
But they have and
there's a band right now with some of the kids from some of the grunge players. Is it called Third Secret or something like that? It's got two girl singers, and it's some of the kids. It's some of the offspring of some of the grunge bands. I can't think of it, man. I'll figure it out. But yeah, they're good too. I heard about that recently and really liked it.
Yeah, it's it's fun because as part of my podcast, I like to recommend an album at least every episode, so I get to my depth of metal listening has just expanded greatly. So, but yeah, Trivium, I think also maybe because they're kind of like, even though they're not as huge commercially and in like the general knowledge of the world, they are kind of like where Metallica was towards the late 90s in terms of they're setting up their own HQ and like they bought like an airplane hangar and they have all this stuff.
Right on.
They've established themselves as like this mainstay formidable beast, and their most recent album, In the Court of the Dragon, is, you know, I'm not a huge Trivium fan, and I've listened to a lot of their stuff though, and it is probably their best yet. You know, so
Right on.
it's kind of interesting, and metal's in a really great place now anyway, because a lot of these older bands from the 80s, these thrash bands and 80s 90s, they're still coming out with new stuff and they still sound great.
Mhm.
You know, these
I've always thought that rock and especially heavy metal has fared better to my ears and to my tastes when it's further out of the limelight. You know what I mean? When it got so much attention and it started Popeyezing itself, I was not as big of a fan of it. So like right now, rock almost seems to be going through kind of a renaissance by being kind of back shelved, you know, but you know, in general, rock itself seems to be kind of going through a movement right now.
Okay.
You're such a hipster, Bobby. Maybe you haven't heard of this music that I know of. But yeah, I mean, as far as coffee goes, I usually just make stuff at home, and it's like Death Wish coffee. Have you heard of Death Wish?
Yeah.
Is that a brand? I thought it was like a style. I was like, you have to fix it 2 days earlier.
No, it's
It's got a great logo. It's just a skull and bones on a box of
Death
coffee.
Wish is definitely one of those where I want to try them out, but I haven't had like the best impression of it.
Yeah.
Mainly it goes to, I was doing a show and at a library, and this guy comes up to my table. He's just like decked out in Death Wish gear, the hat, jacket, shirt, and he's just talking about how much he loves Death Wish coffee and like how his coworkers know when he's had his Death Wish because he's just zipping around, and just the energy and vibe of this guy. And I'm just like, nice enough, dude. Do not want. I do not want this. I know a lot of people swear by it.
It's pretty strong. I mean, it's some of the stronger coffee I've tasted. The other one is McCafe, McDonald's brand coffee. Pretty good. I mean, I like McDonald's. I know it's low tier and it's, you know,
I mean,
probably not very respected, but I really like their ice mochas and stuff like that.
Yeah, I personally can't say I enjoyed McDonald's coffee, but I definitely have heard enough people that I know who do like good coffee say like, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it works. It does the job.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep, it does.
So your mileage may
It's like
vary.
I hear
I'm
people
sure
talking about
it'll
Dunkin'
depend by
Donuts.
location too, you know, just on how they do things or whatever.
Yep.
Just like Dunkin' Donuts. I've mentioned plenty of times. You go to Dunkin' Donuts and get cream and sugar, that can mean 50 different things. You know, you can get a bucket of sugar and a little bit of cream or nothing at all. It's not really regulated. It's good. It's all good, man.
I drink a ton of Red Bull, probably enough Red Bull that normal people would be alarmed, you know, so.
Yeah, I can't, just the taste. I've tried it. It's like the taste of it. Like, I know some people like, oh, you get used to it and you actually kind of like it after a while. And I was like, I just can't, man. I will say, if I had to choose between like that or like Monster or something like that, I'll go with the Red Bull because the Monster, the stuff is just, I don't know. You know, I've drinking plenty of my own trash in my day too, so I can't judge too much on that. I can't. Whatever gets you going, whatever helps you get the job done.
That's it, man.
You know?
Yeah. That's all it's all about. So, all right, gentlemen. Thank you for answering. Gums Coffee Metal. So, you know, to get into it in a very sloppy segue, you guys have just worked on a bunch of stuff throughout the years, and how did you two meet? Because that's always like the curious thing for me when it's like some people from like two different fields teaming up on something. I'm always curious to how that meeting happened.
I think our origin story is pretty unique, Kurt, because one of the most interesting things is that we're both from Kentucky. We've known each other for about 10 or 12 years, but have never met in person. Yeah, you know, it's weird. And so we're getting ready to fix that at the premiere of Spread next year. But we actually met because of movies and stuff like that. And Kurt, we talked about this before, and tell me if I'm wrong about this, but this is the way I always think about it, is when I did the found footage crime thing, my first attempt at trying to do a feature thing back in 2010. I kind of was like planting seeds, like Easter eggs all over Facebook and stuff. Like I was playing a character in the movie named Kevy Chappell, and he had his own, it's still out there if you look up Kevy Chappell. There's a Facebook profile that looks like me 10 years younger with a beard. And so all the characters had Facebook profiles and stuff. And Kurt actually wrote me a thing one day. We didn't know each other at all at this point. And he just sent me a note one day on Messenger. He was like, "This is all you, right?" Like, "You're all of these people." And I was like, yeah, I'm doing all this shit, because I did it like as if it really happened. It was a found footage crime thing, and I literally treated it like I was in the middle of it, like that these guys were after me even. And it was really fun. But one of the most fun things was people chasing those little breadcrumb trails, and that's what Kurt did. And then after that, we just literally became friends. It was like, "Oh wow, I'm from Kentucky too," and so we just started from there. And similar tastes in comics, and even when we're not like don't have the exact same tastes, we're in each other's orbits and stuff. What do you think, Kurt? Is that fairly close?
Yeah, I mean, we kept in touch all the time. We'd talk from time to time on Facebook and stuff like that. And,
but it started from that fucking movie, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was that, and then Her Inner Demons. I remember watching.
I gotcha. Her Own Demons. I gotcha.
Yeah, Her Own Demons. Yeah, and I remember seeing that and thinking, man, that's really hardcore stuff.
Yeah.
And but we didn't really start working together until the pandemic.
Right.
I mean, that was really the first time, right? Was it?
Yeah, it really was. It was right. Probably, honestly, it was probably right before the pandemic. Mm-hmm. It was probably a couple months before. When I asked you to do a quick drawing of Delicate Poison for me.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
There's a character, I did a female Western called Vengeance Turns, and now it's actually been broken into two movies, Vengeance Turns Volume 1 and Vengeance Turns Volume 2. And as I was doing just character development and kind of in the process of writing it, I'd already written one draft, but I reached out to Kurt and I was like, okay, I got a female native character. She's part native, part blah, blah, blah. And I just kind of need a jumping off point. He sent me one of the coolest pictures. I've still got it. Mm-hmm. And then we just kind of, after that, I liked it so much that I would occasionally, like, I'd want something else from him. And I'd just kind of like, I'd be afraid to ask him even, but I'd be like, I was thinking maybe I wondered if, and he'd be like, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah. And then in the pandemic, you were doing the radio show.
Yep.
Like reading scripts, having like table readings, like
Cabin Fever radio novellas. Yeah, Cabin Fever. Yeah,
I did some illustrations for you for that, for a couple of the things you did. You did
totally
like Monsters on Maple Street from Twilight
I called it my coloring pages, man, because I love coloring books. Those were the coloring pages. The monsters are due on Maple Street. Mm-hmm. There was a couple of them. Were the first one alone were. Is anybody out there with what the fuck? What's the name of that one? Slipping me. But yeah, we started doing all that and just getting, like, Kurt would send me books of his, I would read them and give him comments and stuff on stuff like that. And we said it several times, and it was always more like creatives say it to each other all the time, not knowing when it's really going to happen, but we got to work together. Yeah. And because the thing had kept building on Vengeance Turns, and before Vengeance Turns during the pandemic, I literally started asking him after all those coloring pages and stuff, hey, would you do this? Would you do that? And they were all very aimed at Vengeance Turns. And it became, honestly, doing concept work. It really became helping me visualize these characters and even certain scenes and stuff for the movie. Just kind of grew from there, and we ended up doing the comic book, so that became doing the Vengeance Turns comic book. I wrote it to kind of finally do something together. Kurt did the art on it, and it'll be out soon. I'm lettering it right now.
Awesome. Yeah, it's the comic book origin stories for team ups and stuff like that. It's always interesting to hear, because I feel like it's increasingly rare that it's just like, yeah, we just met on Twitter or whatever, or we just, it's always this deep-seated thing, and, there's no finer nail to hit on the head than we should work together.
Yeah.
I think every creative has, like, that handful of people who are like, we should totally work together, and then it's just finding the time, finding the space to do that and all that.
You say things like that all the time, like we were just saying, and what was great is that when we decided to write Spread together, we were just talking about this a little bit earlier today, is that when we actually decided to do that, it was breathtakingly easy. Mm-hmm. It literally, I think, Kurt, the way you said it earlier was, it kind of was born out of play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like when you just talk to somebody and you're like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? Wouldn't it be cool if we did that? And I think a lot of stories, a lot of collaborations like that start that way, probably.
Yeah, on Spread, we were talking about it and like talking about what would we do? Why haven't I done a slasher? What would I do if I did a slasher and stuff like that? And as I was explaining to Kurt why I didn't want to do one and what I would do instead, he was like, dude, slow down, listen, we're writing it right now. This is it,
Yeah, and, exactly. So this question was posed to me when I was being interviewed about why I'm drawn to horror comics and doing horror comics. And my answer was, I really wasn't. I just kind of fell into it because that's what some people asked me to do, and then keep coming back to it. And then, that's just the offers I was getting, and I have no problem doing them. But it is interesting. So I'm wondering, for you two gentlemen, why horror? What's the draw? What's the appeal of the story of Spread, or and any other horror thing that's just you're drawn to? Because it is a fascinating thing, because it's one of those things that I think doesn't have the same answer every single time.
Yeah.
With action movies, people can be like, yeah, it's fun, it's exciting, it's entertaining or whatever. But with horror, there's so much more that you can pull from. So I'm curious to see what draws you two gentlemen to horror.
What do you think, Kurt?
I think for me, it's the same road you had. I mean, as far as art goes, people always saw my art and was like, "Oh, that's perfect for a horror book. Would you draw my horror comic for me?" Because I had these heavy, dark shadows that I would use in my art. And so that was just naturally drew me into it. But, yeah, I mean, I've always been a horror fan, from movies back in the day, reading Stephen King, stuff like that. But for me, what was the other part of your question? The second part?
Just kind of what drew you into it? What's the appeal?
What do you get out of horror, I guess,
for me,
when you consume it or make it?
Like you were saying, it's so many things. It can be so many things. It can be serious. It can be dramatic. It can be comedy. Yada yada yada. And the fact that it doesn't get pinned down to any one thing makes it so open, and it makes it so fun. It's like with comedy. Yeah, it's like you ask yourself every time, what is horror? And it's so fun to do because there's no pressure to, make it like comedy timing and comedic timing and that sort of thing. And it's not deadly serious like drama. It's just people kind of having fun with their fear and trying to embody that fear and put it on screen,
I like that embodying fear. I'm like you guys. I never intended to write horror, but I've always just fallen into it. I've always had I think of myself as a funny and happy person, and everybody around me tells me what a intense and dark, person I am. And even when I wrote one of my very first short stories when I was in college, it was just a story about a guy in love and this girl. It's a quick passing of ships in the night kind of a thing. And it was so funny that when my writing class, this is 30 years ago, they read it. They were like, man, this one scene is very horrific because I talk about a girl kind of just appearing out of a throng of dancing people. These people are dancing in this party, and she just kind of is birthed out of the thing. And they're like, that's such a wild image. And I was like, but it's a comedy story. It's supposed to be like a rom-com. And so I did find out that that seems to be, I have a dark sense of humor. I do think I'm funny, but a lot of things that I think are funny, like in Spread, for instance, are stuff that other people find completely horrific. But on the appeal of horror to me, when I know I'm doing it and I'm doing it on purpose, I like to do it because I think that horror is a great way to hide stuff, and it's a great way to camouflage things. It's a great way to use metaphors and symbolism, you know what I mean, in a very potent and effective way, because you distract people with the sensationalistic nature of what's on the screen, the blood, the violence, and the things like that. You shake them up, and when you shake people up, you're opening. You know what I mean? You have an opportunity to get inside, and so everything I ever write, always, my entire life since the time I was a kid, has some kind of philosophical basis to it. I kind of think of myself as a philosopher first and a writer second, but I also knew that if you try to be a philosopher or a preacher, people automatically resist and they put up their hands. So if you're able to tell people a story, Aesop's Fables, when I was a kid, fascinated me because of that structure, that you would tell somebody a story and have them thinking at the end of it. You know, the moral is, and with Spread, I was just hiring one of our final actors today because we're going to shoot a scene next week.
Oh.
Just broke that right here. And we were just talking about the I totally lost my train of thought because I distracted myself with that. So
I think in that sense it shares with science fiction. You know, science fiction dresses itself up as these, you know, wild aliens and stuff like that. But when you look at things like Star Trek, it's talking about things that are happening right now, today, you know, and that's sort of something the horror also does. You know, if you look at things like, what's that, the Hunt or whatever that came out?
Oh, yeah, the one that came out Blumhouse 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It's just now on Amazon Prime, by the way. If people can find it, it's out right now. It's on.
Yeah. But things like that, you know, it dressed it up as horror, but it's, you know, it's about right now. It's about current day politics.
And that's like with Spread. That's kind of when we started doing it. And Kurt said, "So you have no ideas?" And I was like, "Well, I do have an idea, but it would involve COVID." And so we started talking about that. That's one of those things. It's like stuff like COVID can date the movie, and that can be bad. But it can also be good because it's like putting a signpost in the ground to give people a reference point. And so we talked about including things that were also timely and kind of blowing them up and making them more ironic and satirical. So it really does have a strong like socio-political backbone to it that kind of is like in our minds anyway, it's a little bit of the more progressive side of politics and social structure kicking back a little bit. And I think that horror gives you the freedom to do that and to do it without being preachy.
Yeah, I mean, I think our intention from the beginning was, yeah, we wanted to make a classic horror film, but we wanted to have modern sensibilities. We wanted to have, you know, representation. We wanted to have, you know, speak to political subjects and things like that. That was our big target, I guess.
I totally get what you're saying with the, you know, having it, you know, COVID be a thing within it, the whole dating of it all. But it just brings me to that quote from Roger Ebert. You know, a movie is not necessarily, you know, quality movie is not necessarily what it's about; it's how it is about it. You know, so you know that's I think the measure that I think people kind of miss with horror movies. Like, you know, and I completely agree with you on what horror can do that a lot of other genres can't. You know, and I think because it ties in so much with the other things. You know, we love comics and metal. You know, it's, you know, there's just a study now that came out saying that people who listen to metal are generally happier people.
Yeah, because you get the ability to kind of vent it.
People that curse all the time are happy.
Yeah, you get the catharsis of everything out, and things are dealt with, and they're present, and they're in there, and so I think the same thing with horror. Like, everyone who I've ever met has been like a major horror fan. It's been some of the nicest people I've ever met. Like, and it's just, that's just, you know, they get the demons out that way.
Yeah, my mom found a horror story I wrote when I was about 12 years old, and she found it in my room. I never got it out to read to her. She just finds it and she reads it. And I come home one night and she has me sit down with her and my dad at the table, and she's like, "Do you need help?" And I was like, "Writing? I'm pretty good." No, but I said, no, I told her, I literally knew what she was asking, and I told her the truth. I said, "No, this is my help." I said, I do think about a lot of dark and brutal, awful shit. And maybe I would be a danger if I wasn't a writer, but this is how I express it. You know, I'm not interested in hurting people. I'm interested in exploring violence, not committing it.
Yeah.
damn, Bobby could have been a serial killer.
Missed it by that much.
Damn.
Well, I
Took
think
the wrong path.
we are all better for it.
I hope so.
And we got a movie out of it.
Yeah,
So,
there you go. And speaking of the movie, you currently have the fundraiser going on Indiegogo right now, and
Yep.
I see the media blitz you guys are doing, pushing and getting the word out
on the news.
Aside from making the movie, what are the goals you see for Spread? What's the not necessarily the end game, but like, is this something you want to take to festivals? Is it something you're just hoping to just get out to as many people as possible through like, VOD or something like that? Or
the ideal world, like you always have, like you make your plans and then you live with the reality. The vision, the plan, if we were to get our ice cream cone with all the flavors we wanted on it, the plan would be that once we make the movie, we self-distribute through like Prime and some channels like that, and that we, as the actors and the crew, keep every single penny of this. That's the reason for doing the Indiegogo, is to really keep out external money and forces away from the movie so that we can keep the vision pure. And then, as a 53-year-old guy in this business, and I've had success in sales in the past, one of the things that is one of my goals, as crazy as it sounds, is to provide a legacy to some of these younger actors that can change the course of their careers. Because if the movie does well enough, and it doesn't have to be extreme, if we own it and there's no studio and shit in between us, and it sells even a handful of copies, then that could change those guys' lives and make their ability to select projects as they move forward in acting a whole different experience. And as I was telling Kurt and a few other people today, again, I'm unmarried, I have no kids, so my art is my legacy and what it does in the world. And I'm literally taking and dividing up, if the movie does anything, all of my royalties as a writer, a producer, a director, all those royalties are individually divvied up and are going to things like to feed hungry people in Kentucky, creative arts education programs in Kentucky, anti-gun laws, supporting anti-gun stuff, supporting Planned Parenthood, supporting abortion laws, supporting women's rights, and things like that. And that's stuff that after I die and the movie is still out there and doing good, if it were to happen, if all that ice cream, then those royalties would still be spending and still supporting those causes long after my death. That's the ultimate vision.
That's quite an amazing legacy to leave behind. Hopefully it's not for a long time. And hopefully it is one hell of a legacy.
And Kurt, you had a great goal earlier, man. I liked what you told me your goal was. I thought that was really interesting about politically.
Well, Bobby came up with, I hope that they say that there's no such thing as bad press, right? any attention is good attention.
Hashtag Kurt.
You can argue with that, but but Bobby, I would love it if these people who are really liberal love the movie and spread it and talk about it, spread it. And the people who hate it and realize that it's them that we're making fun of, just talk shit about it to everybody. And so
they were giving money to
abortion
and anti-gun.
Yeah. But I was like, well, I would love it if all the liberal people understood exactly what it was about.
That they got it.
Yeah. That it was about, it was anti, against the GOP, against conservative politics and things like that. And the conservative viewers who saw it wouldn't get it at all, wouldn't get the satire at all, and think
they would look at it like it's a positive ending.
Yeah, like these evil, yeah, this evil bad guy, the main bad guy in it, that they're like, yeah, that guy's got a point. This is great. Let's spread it to everybody that we know. Send it out to everybody so they can see this great character Pugh, because he's got a lot of really great ideas.
The model for the year 2030. That's the GQP Foundation. They're showing our movie, and this is how we want to do it, folks. Murder and rape. That's the plan. Murder, rape, and incest. We got a plan. 3-point plan.
That's the 3 foundations of
America.
America today, yeah. That's America.
We're gonna get canceled before we get off of this show, man.
Oh boy. Well, you've kind of touched on it now, and we kind of have not talked about that yet, and that is, what is Spread Pigs to Slaughter? What is that about? What is the pitch, the log line for it?
I say it's The Big Chill meets Scream.
That's quite a combo.
That's my nutshell pitch. I think I wrote something on Facebook yesterday that it's a movie about an ultra redneck conservative who decides that he can change the world through incest, murder, and rape.
Okay.
Like, okay.
Here's another way. A group of kids goes away for the
Yep.
weekend and gets stalked by murderers in a pig mask. There you go.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
That's the 30,000-foot view.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically about a group of friends who just come out of COVID and they decide to go out and have fun in the, cabin in the woods that you always hear about. And they start getting stalked by a mysterious figure. And things kind of get worse from there, just get horrible and bloody and violent from there.
Yeah.
I think the as you quoted, Cabin in the Woods, I think that setup is due for a comeback. I think it's due for something, because there's been a few good ones, but I don't think we've had the Evil Dead yet of this generation.
Right.
With
So,
that, and
we literally looked at tropes for horror movies and just almost like checking boxes off. We were like, we want to put that in the movie, we want to put that in the movie, we want to put that in the movie, and literally looked at certain things that show up in a lot of horror movies and thought, let's put it in the pot.
Yeah, Bobby watched dozens and dozens of horror movies.
I watched
went down the line, writing out, this has got to be in it, this has got to be in it, this is no, and leave that out. It just went down through the whole thing.
I watched over
every one of those horror movies good. Yeah.
I watched over 100 hours of slasher content between November and February, and took notes on all of it. I actually sat taking notes.
That's a lot of slasher stuff. You kind of mentioned like the tropes of horror and kind of including that in, and I do think, like, so many other things like comics and to keep bringing it back, metal, sometimes having those tropes is a great thing. It's having those touchstones, and it really is how it is done. How are these tropes done? Because it's not that, here it is, the cabin in the woods. It's like, well,
right.
The cabin in the woods kind of took that trope and did something different with it.
Totally.
Yeah.
So,
and we wanted to do that, like masked killer was our thing. Instead of like the cabin in the woods took the cabin in the woods, and we decided we wanted to take the idea of the masked killer and
shift the locale to another quote unquote trope.
Right.
But by doing that, you change the very nature of it. It definitely becomes, because even like the closest thing I could think of that kind of even sounds like that kind of setup would be like The Strangers. But even then, it's not the same. It's not a group of people. It's like you mentioned, The Big Chill. Like it's such a different vibe, as opposed to the couple Home Alone invasion movie kind of thing. So no, this sounds really awesome, really cool. So you have like everything set. You're starting to film. You have the cast together. What was the timeline like from inception to action?
Well, I mean, it was November that we started talking about it, right? And we started throwing all these ideas back and forth, and
opened a Google Doc.
Got into like January, February, and said, let's start writing this script. And we kind of set a deadline for it of getting it done in a couple of weeks. And Bobby went off. I went off and did like a version of it, like a really, really, really rough draft, and sent that to Bobby, and it went back and forth from there. And it came together really fast. And Bobby, when he started working on it, he, of course, he's all about structure. He likes to say he's all about structure. And for him, it was like, I'm going to take these pieces and you take those pieces, and we'll write separately. And then when we're done, we'll put them all together and see how it works.
And if we had to, we'll tweak dialogue and stuff. Didn't need to.
Yeah, it dovetailed really well. I mean, I think both our writing styles complemented each other really well.
And we had talked about it so much.
Yeah.
We kind of already knew certain things. You know what I mean?
We were like already in the same headspace about where this movie was going and what we wanted to do with it and the kind of tropes that we wanted to reframe.
we went from a 5-page set of notes in February to an 82-page first draft in a matter of about 3 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty fast. And then we revised it and edited it. I started putting casting notices out just to show Kurt like what it would look like if we did make a movie. And then all of a sudden it just kind of took on a life of its own at that point. And we literally started casting people in April and telling them we won't be able to shoot this until September. We're going to need your help because we're going to need to try to raise some money and da-da-da-da-da. And if we don't raise enough money, you're going to have to be prepared to do extra work and stuff. So we had to get the right people, you know, as far as that goes. And we started down that road. And it's like, I told Kurt about this, and he's seeing all this happen. We're in the middle of it right now. But he was like, how do you make a movie? I said, you just start.
It's like doing a comic. How do you get into comics? Make a comic.
I was like, I'm going to set a date, and we're going to start filming this in September. And every time we hit any resistance over the past couple months, I just keep on coming back with whatever people push at me. I'm like, whatever, but we're starting on September 5th, you know? And so I hear what you're saying, but we need to figure out, don't tell me no, let's talk about how, you know, because that's my thing is I don't like to say no, and I don't like to hear no. I like to talk about how. You know, and sometimes it's just how is so unwieldy that it does prevent it from happening, but nothing is impossible. And so we keep on aiming at this, and everybody's staying excited about it and stuff. But as we start considering even our maximum budget at this, we've been looking at 150,000. Even that's small, for a feature film. But if we do it on less than that, it's really going to be a shoestring experience. And so I've started to kind of like prepare for that. And so we're shooting the first day, the opening sequence on the 7th, which is next Thursday. And I hope that gets everybody worldwide excited. As we keep on doing stuff like this, we can actually show it to people like you, you know, and then we can say, hey, it's going to be out there if you want to support our Indiegogo or something, even do like a $10 Bacchus for social media shout out, and it'll be in the updates. So you can actually see the opening for the movie now, you know, a rough edit and stuff like that. And then I'll use that to make a trailer. We'll probably do one more day like that in between, and then we'll film the rest of it between like September 7th, because now my Western Vengeance Turns Volume 1 is premiering at a film festival on September 5th. So that did actually have to make us move to September 7th. But it'll be about a 2-week process. We'll shoot everything over about 2 weeks. I'll have it all edited. Robert Rodriguez is my hero, my mentor. He sets the vision. I follow it. And we'll be watching this early next year, and we're going to be premiering it in Kentucky at a theater that I used to go to as a kid, and then here in North Hollywood as well in April.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's really, really.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for me was, like Bobby was saying, we thought when we wrote the script, we thought, you know, this is a pretty good script. And then when he started putting it out there and putting it out to actors, and he was like, this is the biggest and best response I've ever gotten on any project that I've ever worked on.
We got like people looking at it on IMDb. Yeah. It's getting attention.
That was great validation.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have like actors like Ian Peterson who said, it's nice to be able to know that you've got this job coming up and you can prepare for it, because usually a working actor is just work, and get the next job, get the next job.
We're all of us getting to know each other. We're workshopping stuff, you know, give us the ability to kind of,
you know, you don't get a lot of time to prepare for it. You don't get a lot of time to build a character. You don't get a lot of time for rehearsals and that kind of thing. And in this case, it's so far out, that filming date, that they have time
to read the script, look at it, ask questions, you know.
Yeah,
and then we'll start actually doing some rehearsals pretty soon, like getting those guys together and stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You kept mentioning it September 5th, September 7th dates, and I'm like, wow, that's so far out. But I'm like, no, it's like 2 months.
It's not. Yeah. That's what I tried to tell these people back when we started talking about it in April. They were like, that's pretty far out. And I was like, it's not.
It's that,
you know, I was like,
and it's like, oh man, here it is. Here it is. It's coming.
Yeah. I said, when September gets here, we're going to be like, oh shit, you know, and I'm going to be telling you guys, you were telling me we had a lot of time, you know, why aren't you more prepared?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still kind of living on COVID time right now, you know.
Yeah.
And we're still, things are going so fast right now. Things are moving so fast that it's going to be here in no time.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, and we're gonna be watching it before we know what's going on. You know what I mean? And especially the way doing it in chunks like this, like, you know, people are going to feel like they've been watching it for a long time because we're going to have that rough edit done on the first scene in about a week, a little over a week. And so people who are interested in it are going to see it and they're going to start feeling involved, directly, like, invested in it.
Before I know it, I'm going to be scrolling through Amazon and I'm going to see Spread show up and I'm going to be like that Leonardo DiCaprio meme. I'm like,
feel like that scene in Once Upon a Time from Hollywood.
Yeah. There it is. Awesome.
Man, I hope so. I hope this movie does anything. I want it to do well because, where money doesn't mean a lot to me personally, I understand what it means overall. It's dollar votes is what I always call it. And then, like I said, as far as legacy goes, there are things that I know money isn't important to me, but some of the things that it can do is important to me.
Comes in handy.
Yeah, as much as I want to fight it.
Yeah. I totally get you there. I totally understand. And I appreciate your point of view on things. I appreciate your desire for leaving behind that legacy and, your consideration for the people involved in your projects and what the result of your project can do for them in the future and all that. And on the topic of the future, I know you're knee deep in everything right now, but are there thoughts beyond Spread? Are you a laser focused type person, or you're like, no, that's just the pot that's boiling right now, but these other ones are still warming up?
You gotta. I think it's true. You guys can tell me because I'm not as experienced with comics as you guys are. Although that's part of what my other pots that are boiling right now. But I've always believed, as a creative, and particularly as far as TVs and movie goes, is it behooves you to have multiple projects working, because anytime you kind of feel bored or stuck on one thing, I just very naturally drift over and start working on the other. And also, if you ever have a meeting in Hollywood, and I'm sure it's like this if you get the chance to meet with Marvel or somebody too, but the one fucking thing that you do not want to happen is for somebody to say, what ideas do you have? And you go, well, well.
Yeah.
So I always like to have 3 or 4 or 5 things that I'm working on and my friends get sick of hearing me talk about it, but I talk about it all the time so that I am prepared that anytime if I'm on an elevator with somebody or I do happen to get a meeting scheduled, like, hey, you could actually come and meet Rodriguez today, I can sit there and talk to him. And he go, I'm not interested in a Western, have you thought about anything comedy? I'm like, yeah, I've got a TV show, like it's like for background actors, sit there and like, what about comics? Yeah, me and my friend are doing something that's like trans-dimensional and cross-time caper and the Earth disappears and so I always do like to keep multiple things working, and it drives me. It keeps me focused. That's what keeps me focused, because if I just try to work on one thing, if I get frustrated, I might just abandon it. Rather than stay focused on it. Whereas if I split my focus across many things, I'm almost more certain to keep playing the bongos. What do you think, Kurt?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you listen to like Guillermo del Toro, he said, I always have multiple projects going at one time because you never know which one's going to move forward. I always develop multiple projects because if you put your eggs in one basket, then that doesn't plan out and doesn't work, then you're up shit creek, basically.
And I've had people ask me, like, so what are you going to do if somebody says, well, I do like this idea, and I like that idea, and I like that idea, and I'm like, that's the best problem I could ever have.
Yeah.
Is to sit there and say, oh, you mean I can't direct all these, that somebody else is going to have to direct them? I mean, that's an unimaginable, unfathomable problem for me at this point,
Awesome. Yeah.
Gladly take it.
The multiple project thing, that's something I think is very prevalent in the comic book world. For myself, like, I have several things I am committed to doing, and then I also have several things that's all me that I'm wanting to do. So if one of those things doesn't happen or is held up or whatever, there's a thing to move on to. And then of course,
right.
I make things more complicated for myself by doing live streams and podcasts and, and making music.
I dig it, man.
And all these things. So it's the keeping busy, but having that thing, being ready for when something is coming up is definitely an excellent reason to have, a backlog. And it's just nice to switch gears sometimes, even if it's just like,
that's what I was gonna say. My brain doesn't want to always be on the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
It's real helpful when it's like, you could, if you're like on a walk or something, or exercising, or on a drive, or just trying to get your mind removed from what you're working on, because you need to break on those things no matter what it is.
Yeah,
it's good to have another thing that's kind of, even very different, that kind of just goes, and that it's definitely a, something that'll feed you later on, because I'm sure all the other projects you're thinking about working on, whatever, that energy, that vibe, and that enthusiasm and passion, that those kind of like keep that fire going, affects spread. It keeps you just going and energized and all that. So that's
it's like
awesome.
a palate cleanser to a certain degree. You know what I mean? It's like you get all that taste in your mouth, and you're like, I need something else right now. So you get that palate cleanser, and then you can appreciate the flavor again.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, and it's nice for people like Bobby and me. I can't speak to you, Don, but if you're have an ADHD brain, like me and Bobby do, you can jump around to a lot of different things and not have to sort of focus on any one thing at any one time for too long, so long that you just kind of get bored and fall asleep on it or something.
I'll explain to a friend about a week ago, a girl about half my age, just a friend, that about how I've learned through the years the different problems, that things are classified as problems, my neurodivergent brain or what have you, that I've learned how to take most of the things that most people and doctors even have tried to tell me were problems. I've learned how to massage them and work them into my life to make them work for me instead of against me, because they're there. They're not going away. You know what I mean? It's like ADHD, like obsessive compulsive disorder and things like that. And just over the years, I've just learned how, even stuff like depression and anxiety. I've learned how to make anxiety, which is a huge problem in my life. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say I've mastered it, because I haven't. But I've learned how to take anxiety and turn it into fuel in many, 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 many cases. I still don't like when it happens, but when it does, I always realize there's something going on right now. Something needs done, and you can sit here and freak out about it and just be in this anxious mode, or you can take and channel that and get busy.
No, totally. And, I carry the card as well, gentlemen. It is something that is, you work with. You find the tools to work with it. And some days it beats you, some days it doesn't, and but the days you can get it to work for you are like,
you wouldn't trade them. Trade them.
No, not at all.
Magic.
There's been days where that the chase has I've like inked a full page, laid down a ton of stuff for music, ended up having a podcast recorded and edited, like all in one day, and I'm just like, man, if I could do this every day, the world's fucked. Like,
Yeah, I got you.
And then the next day, it's staring at the kitchen table for
exactly.
trying to remind yourself to go do the dishes.
You have 2 or 3 days where you're like, man, I did a page a day or 2 pages a day, and wow, I feel really good. And then you have like 3 or 4 days where you draw one panel, or like part of another panel, or sketch out a page.
Kurt, on that note, let me ask both of you guys a question. This is something I've been dealing with this week, and I have to keep catching it. Again, it's like when I catch it, it's okay. But like I'll go through this thing where I know I've got to get all these certain things done. Like right now, they're all spread related or whatever, and I'll sit there and I'll wake up in the morning thinking, God damn, I've got this massive amount of stuff I got to get done today, blah, 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 blah. And then other things will distract me, but they're still important. There's stuff that had to get done, like a doctor's appointment or whatever it is. They're vital things. I mean, vital. And I'll be spun out at the end of the day because I'm sitting thinking like, I didn't do anything today. And I have to sit there and wait, stop. What do you mean you didn't get anything done today? I have to literally do an assessment. And go, I got a massive amount of crap done today. It just wasn't what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so there's a thing about that line about accepting, and it's not spinning your wheels work, it's not stupid work, but you've got to give yourself credit sometimes. And I wonder if you guys go through that because you hit it, Kirby, like doing the one panel thing. What else did you do that day? What was it? Even if it was self-care, man. Do you know what I mean?
Well, as a husband and father of two small kids, like what I want to get done that day, that's that
Takes a
that is a
backseat to what you have to get done.
fool's hope to write to make that list. It's a joke, like, oh, you use a planner. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, here's the thing. You know,
Just so you know to go back to. That's what I use a plan for in a list. It's like, you know.
I don't prescribe much to like astrology or whatever, but technically I'm a Virgo, and technically I do hit a lot of the points that they that are typical Virgo things, including the desire for organization and things like that. It's just my brain actively works against me against that. So it's kind of this constant battle of like, you tell me, oh, make this list of all the things you want to do. I'm like, fuck yeah, of course I want to do that. But yeah. So, but no, at the end of the day, kind of like something you know, I've been told and I think works really well is just, you know, assessing the day and looking at the things you did get done, because I can say, oh man, I only got like a panel done today, and then I look back, I'm like, well, I had to like call my family's insurance and take care of that.
I got my oil
these
change.
other 3 or 4 or 5 phone calls. I had to go, you know, do a whole bunch of shopping and grocery shopping day. And
Take your kid to the doctor.
You know, and you know, make sure the kids aren't locked up in the house all day. You know, and doing all that. So it's just like, okay, well, I did do a lot today. It's usually a good reminder when I'm just like, you know, getting up after putting the kids down around this, you know, this time. And I'm like, I'm so tired. Why am I so tired? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's why I'm tired.
Why am I so freaking exhausted? I didn't even write that article today.
It's like,
oh
no,
because I did.
Yeah, you had like 15 phone calls and you drove halfway across town and other things. So yeah, definitely. Kurt,
People, I have people tell me, including Bobby, all the time, tell me, "Man, you're so productive. You know, you get so much stuff done and everything."
Oh no,
like,
my favorite thing. No, Kurt, let's turn this around. My favorite thing about Kurt is when he constantly he likes to post things, and it's, to me, it's amazing what he does. He'll post things like, "I've written this many pages and I've drawn this many pages. I'm such a fucking loser." And I'm like,
you gotta bump those numbers up.
You're 3 times more productive than the most productive person I know, and you're talking about, you know, how lazy you are. It's like you're absolutely insane.
I mean, it just seems like physically impossible. You know, my brain always says you're not doing enough. You know,
right.
Because people are always telling me, "Oh, you're so productive. You did this, you did this," and I'm just sitting there thinking, "Man, you don't even know me. You don't even know how lazy I am." You know, and I'm like, well, at this point, I kind of have to admit that I haven't done a few things. You know, I mean, I can look on Amazon and see I've got, you know, 15 books or something on there that I've written or drawn, or one or the other or both. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where, like me and Bobby were talking about earlier about art, I think, about how it's never good enough. You know, you're never as good as you want to be. You're never as good. You're always chasing being better.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing as far as productivity. You know, you always think, I'm never productive enough. I'm not doing enough stuff.
That's you were talking about deadlines earlier, Kurt, and this is a weird segue off of that. But that's one of the things I always love about deadlines, whether they're arbitrarily like imposed from a producer or somebody outside, or whether you set them yourself, is they do at least give you a finishing point. And I also am a firm believer that deadlines are set to be broken. Yeah. They're just simply a guide point. You know what I mean? But without that guide point, sometimes you don't know where to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas if you sit there and say, I got to get this, like we're filming this movie in September. We're starting on September 5th. Now we're not starting until September 7th, but that's okay. You know what I mean? It's at least that having the guide, having the goal, getting started is sometimes the biggest thing that we can do, is just getting
having a roadmap instead of a Bible, you know.
100%.
You can take a lot of different routes on a roadmap, and Bible is
detours. Like that's what the roadmap is for, is to help you find your way once you've had to get off on a detour. You know how to get back.
However you get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And yeah, so it is having that point in time towards like, okay, well, it's a touchstone, it's a check mark, it's a checkpoint, this be like, okay, I want to have it done by then, but if it doesn't happen, it's not the end of the world. Now, that could be a dangerous road to go down to itself. It's like, oh, you keep pushing it back. But, I think that's person to person. You got to kind of figure out what works for you there.
Totally.
I've been learning that myself. Like, I always expect more done than I do. So some of the writers I work with on a fairly regular basis, they kind of know that, let me give Don a really long lead time, because if he can have it done sooner, he will. But if he doesn't, it'll be, I recently did a story where the writer gave me like 6 months for 8 pages, and I was already in the middle of a couple other things, so I couldn't actually just jump right on it. But he's like, yeah, have it done in May. So I'm like, okay, cool. It was more than fine. And then I got onto another project, and it ended up taking way longer than I expected, and it took over a month longer than I expected it to. So when it came for this other one coming up, I'm like, hey, I know you gave me like 6 months, even though you really knew it would be like a 2-month window. I would be working on it off and on. I need like another week. I only needed like 2 more days, but he was like, it's fine. But it's this kind of knowing yourself there, and to that, just if you're going to be using the idea of deadlines as a guide as opposed to a hard end, be honest with yourself.
100%.
Because more often,
sometimes you're going to disappoint yourself.
Often than not, people will understand. Writers understand. And they'll just be truthful, because better to under promise and over deliver.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a big important part of any kind of creative endeavor, is keeping that communication line open and making sure that you tell people realistically, this is how long it's going to take. This is where I am. This is how much longer it's going to be, and making sure that you be honest, and keep communications open with people, and don't just disappear for 6 months.
There it is. Yeah. Doing a little with a lot and communicating. To me, those are like to what I'm trying to build my career on.
Definitely. Words to live by. So, gentlemen, it's been a blast talking to you, getting to know you guys.
Oh, man.
I hope that, all the stuff you're doing for Spread just continues to spread and go on, and you guys just achieve, every single milestone you're hoping to achieve. And right now is the time to let everybody know where they can find you online, where they can support Spread, what they can do to help out.
Well, visit the Indiegogo. If you go to Indiegogo, you can put in Spread or Spread the Movie, and it's going to come up. Really easy is just go to our website, which is spreadthemovie.com. And then it's the first thing when you start scrolling down. You'll see the Indiegogo link, and there's all kinds of other cool stuff there as well. On Instagram, we're at Spread the Movie. We have something in the movie called Procrastogram. So if you go to procrastogram.com, that'll take you to our Instagram as well. My own Instagram is at only Robert C. Smith. That's also my OnlyFans page. So I'd like for you to subscribe to that. I'm kidding about that. But and then on Twitter, it's Mr. Robert C. Smith. And then, just like I said, Spread the Movie or Hamson. We didn't talk about Hamson tonight at all, Kurt.
I forgot about Hamson. Oh boy.
But Hamson Comic is something else you want to look up. There's a Facebook page for Hamson too. Hamson is a whole other rabbit hole.
Go to spreadthemovie.com, check out Hamson, and then go deeper into that rabbit hole for sure.
Yeah,
exactly. Check out Jeffrey Lofty Daughter. I was putting about that. Kurt, I don't know if you knew that, but you know that Lofty Daughter, Air Daughter, chose Icelandic because the whole theme that we were choosing in Iceland is the most currently gender balanced country in the world. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I chose to make Lofty Daughter's name based on an Icelandic bastardized Air Daughter thing. Lofty Daughter.
Nice. Kurt?
Easter egg.
Kurt, where can we find you?
I'm at Kurt Belcher on pretty much everywhere. I mean, Twitter, Instagram. I think on Instagram I might be Belcher Kurt.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Something. It's Instagram. It's Belcher Kurt. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Instagram.
Can't make it too easy for people to find you.
Yeah.
What's your OnlyFans page?
Sexy Daddy, I think is at Sexy Daddy.
Kudos on getting like that one and not like a number behind it.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta be first, man. You gotta be there early. Kurt was an early adopter for male cam models.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, everyone, thanks for tuning in. Go.
Thank you, Don.
Check out Spread. Check out Kurt. Check out Robert. Thanks for joining us.
Spread the word.
And that's the show. Thank you, everybody.
See ya.